558 COVID-19 cases have been confirmed by NPHET. 262 people are in hospital with the virus, up 14 in the past 24 hours. 51 are in ICU, an increase of 3 over the same period. And finally, Twitter's announced it's altering its new design after some users complained it was giving them headaches. The redo was introduced last week, bringing more high contrast colours alongside a new font. The social media platform was aiming to remove visual clutter, but now accepts it'll need to change it to make it easier on the eyes. It's 2 minutes past 8.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Extend your summer with a holiday to sunshine beaches in Spain, Italy, Portugal and Greece.
Some light rain over Ulster and North Connacht tonight, but mostly dry elsewhere. Lowest temperatures of 11 to 13 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
It's the competition giving you life-changing cash. The 25k giveaway on News Talk.
Yeah, so this is your chance to win a life-changing sum of money. What you do with it, build an extension, buy a boat, book that dream holiday, is up to you. €25,000 could be yours on Friday. All you have to do is answer this question correctly and we could be calling you back on Friday. Which reality TV show is ending after 17 years? A, The X Factor, or B, Strictly Come Dancing? So to enter, text the word play 57599 with your answer, A or B. €2.50 to play plus your standard message rate. You have to be over 18 and you're playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Full terms are on our website. You can get your entry in by this Friday at 3 o'clock and then we could be calling you. Answer within 5 rings and the cash is yours. So for your chance to win the €25,000, text play to 57599 and your answer as well, obviously. So best of luck with that. This hour we're turning to GAA and we're going to start with an extraordinary game on Saturday evening.
77 on the clock. This to level it and bring us to extra time. Come on, Robbie. He did it! He did it! It's over the bar! And Robbie! Extra time! And now it's Mayo! 13 points, Dublin, 13 points, a Mayo man on the deck as well.
There's a Mayo man down, number 10, it's down Diarmuid O'Connor. There's a Dublin man after hitting him. There should be a Dublin man sent off here, but Dublin are all over the place. But Henley, let's carve his name of pride, because again and again, that man has got more abuse from Mayo fans. And fair play to him.
Fair play to Robbie Henley. It's now Mayo 13 points, Dublin 13 points. There's after Shamas here. Connor Lane needs to get a grip of this game.
No Mayo man's taking a backward step, but Henley, in fairness to the man.
And you hear that roar, it's electric. The Mayo roar. We have suffered so much defeats over the years, this Dublin team. We haven't beaten them since 2012. Well, we're going to take them all the way tonight, Marianne. Playing it around now.
Playing it around.
O'Hora. And now it's with Ryan Donoghue. And Mayo force meters out from that Dublin goal. Playing it around, keeping the ball to try and ensure that we see the job out. And Dublin are out. Mayo are through to the All-Ireland Senior Football Final. 17 points to 14 after extra time. Absolutely sensational.
Sensational. Woo! We came, we saw, we conquered. We bearded the line in their own den and we have slain it. We have to applaud Dublin. They were last defeated here before 81,500 people in August 2014 when Donegal beat them. But my God, the self-belief, the resilience, the passion was off scale in the second half. The intelligence with which they played that second period. But it was fitting. There is something appropriate that it was Mayo who beat them. They have clung to them over the years. They have pressed them. They've taken them to the brink, but they have kicked them over the cliffs.
We certainly have. Today is our day as the green and red of Mayo is blasted out.
Oh, yes. I had thought Lee Keegan was the performance of the weekend. Martin Carney, take a bow, phenomenal on Midwest and ably supported by Michael D. McAndrews as well. I think I might need to watch this match back on Midwest Radio. That was extraordinary. So that kind of captures it. I think there was something very epic and very visceral about Saturday evening at Croke Park. Deeply felt encounter on the pitch, in the stands. And so we're going to chat about it in some detail now. We'll get to our guests, Mike Quirke and Dara, in just a second. But first, a sense of the two managers in the immediate moments at full time. First up, Tommy Rooney there for Off the Ball. James Horan here with his reaction.
Can we talk about Conor Lane for a second? You could be seeing clearly miming on the TV saying that's a joke when the Owen McLaughlin hit. We could have been having a very different conversation here at full time.
Yeah. Look, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think. I just thought it was well, I suppose the thing that bothered me the most is, when a player isn't bothered, the way they fall to the ground. They can't really protect themselves because they're either unconscious or they're knocked out or whatever it is. And I just saw the way Owen fell with that hit. So that's what bothered me. The play went on and Dublin had a goal chance that I think it was Cormac Costello could have stuck in the net. So sometimes that ball could have gone in. What happens then? It could be a very different game, absolutely. But my main concern that time was because the game didn't stop. Was Owen okay? That's what really annoyed me. I just thought the game should have been stopped there.
Is there anything you can do about that? Would there be questions about that asked again?
Oh look, I haven't got to all the players yet, so we'll have a look at it. But the main thing is we make sure that Owen's okay.
Now, to be fair to Horan, that was not the first question or the first thing they chatted about. He was obviously blown away by the performance and talked about how they were tentative maybe in the first 15-20 minutes, had a chat at half-time, decided to really go for it and push on, and then the Conor Lane stuff obviously came up towards the end of the interview. Dessie Farrell then, much more sombre affair here. What went wrong, particularly in the second half and extra time, was the question.
It's difficult to diagnose. I think we probably, throughout the year, we show glimpses of playing really, really good football. But one of our greatest challenges probably was that lack of consistency across the quarters. First two were very good today. Third and fourth weren't, and just not to the standard that's required to win a competitive contest like this.
Dessie, what has the last year been like for you yourself? It's been a tough year with the COVID training ban, Stephen Cluxton departing, Eric Lowndes leaving. Like 80 All-Ireland medals have left that Dublin dressing room in the last 18 months. Have you found it tough over the last year?
No, I haven't. At the end of the day, our job as management is simple enough. It's just to facilitate and try to create the environment where our players can be at their best, and individual players make decisions to move on, and that's part of it. That's the nature of sport, and time or tide waits for no man. And if a number of players decide that they need to move on, everyone respects that, and all of them, including the players in the dressing room today, have given massive service to the county over the last number of years, and we 100% respect that. And elite sport is all about regeneration and continuously evolving, and that's what this Dublin team needs to do.
Now, very happy to say we have two Kerry man, just the way it fell, by the way. It's not like there's some Kerry conspiracy. Mike Quirke, you're very welcome. How you doing?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
And Dara Conaja. I want Martin Carney-esque energy out of you, Dara, this evening.
Hard to replicate that, won't it, Joe? Japers.
I use the phrase like visceral. I mean, geez, you could just hear it in Martin Carney's voice, couldn't you, Dara?
You could hear it, I suppose, when he was praising Rob Henley there in particular, and it's totally understandable because, as Martin said in the commentary, Henley was very much vilified, I suppose, over the years. Fantastic keeper, always a debate in Mayo. They had such a rich amount of talent in terms of Mayo between O'Malley and Clark and Henley over the last 10 years, let's say. And I think every neutral in the ground the last day and everybody watching and listening would have been delighted for Rob Henley to do what he did the last day. So I think that's where a lot of Martin's energy and emotion is coming from.
Mike, I've heard about 8 different reasons for the retake, but regardless, the retake happened and he nailed it. I mean, the first effort was atrocious. I was very happy for him that he didn't have to sign off on that moment.
Yeah, I think he was clever there. He like, if you see Maurice Deegan is standing like 10 yards away from him, so he knew that was it wasn't the one that was counting. That looked like a sighter from him, and he was clever enough to take it quickly and then got another chance. So like, if you look at the second one that he took, Maurice Deegan's nowhere near the shot, but Maurice Deegan was standing 10 years. So I honestly think the guy was clever enough to just get one off quick and get his bearings, and absolutely agree with Dara. Like, you couldn't but be happy for guys, particularly like Rob Henley, like a guy who's been trampled on, by not only, other county supporters, his own supporters at times, because of that whole debate with David Clark and himself. And it's just, you couldn't but be pleased for guys like that, and it's obviously very telling as well tonight, Joe, that you couldn't get a Mayo guy out of a pub for celebrating to come on here for half an hour. You have to, it's two guys from Kerry to talk about it.
No. Look, we'd Billy Joe on yesterday with Pillar Caffrey, and we decided let's go neutral this evening. We'll get some extra analysis. We brought you two in.
Kerry ever neutral, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. I'm watching for all the seeds you're sowing here across this chat now to ambush Mayo with. So, I mean, it's just an extraordinary evening, Dara, on various fronts. Not least because I think after 35 minutes, it was one of the great anticlimaxes. Most people it was one of the first football matches this year they'd cleared the schedule for. This was must watch for obvious reasons. And after 35 minutes at 10-4, I don't think anybody thought Colin O'Rourke was foolish to say we might as well go home.
No, it was, what struck me about Mayo's first half performance was just a lack of imagination, lack of punch. You're looking, when are the forwards going to score from play? You had points from Matthew Ruan, you had points from Henley from frees. Conor Loftus came with a point, but you're just wondering, when is it going to happen for the forwards? Things were going against Aidan O'Shea, and we were putting it down at half-time to a lack of imagination. Here we go again. And just when they went off script, I think they might have been thinking about it too much. I think Mayo are the type of team that need to be playing off-the-cuff, chaotic stuff. It plays to their strengths, their pace, their aggression in the tackle and everything else. That lack of structure, when they, as James Horton said, after the game, they just pushed up in 2s and 3s as opposed to pushing up in 1s. And that's the big thing. That was the big change. That was the big shift. I think bringing on Enda Hession in 26 minutes was a big moment for them as well. It gave them, a bit of energy around the middle, great ball carrying ability. And we hadn't seen a whole lot of that guy before, but I think we're going to be seeing an awful lot more of him. But really, they just played to their strengths. But the first half, no more so than against in the Connacht final. I was there in Croke Park for that as well. You're just saying, Chippers, Galway are never going to beat Mayo here, are they? But it looks like they are, because they hadn't produced it in the first half. And again, those words, lack of imagination, were coming to the fore. Yeah. So, I think Mayo are one of these teams that do better when they don't overthink things, when they just go and play like the Mayo teams of, from 2011 onwards. If they were at their best, always and ever, with the likes of Keith Higgins and these lads in the past running straight lines, somebody off the shoulder. There's plenty of fellas to do that now, and we saw it in the second half. Lee Keegan being moved out to the half back line as well was a big thing. I think most of Lee Keegan's football under James Horan Mark II has been played in the full back line, and he is a good man marker. Conor Callahan probably showed him up maybe 2 years ago as man marking, slow on the turn in the 2019 semi-final. When he gets out to the half-back line, there's nobody better. And even at his age and his experience, he just gives you so much in the half-back line.
Set him free, Mike.
Set him free. And Dara mentioned it there. The biggest change was just the energy level that Mayo attacked the second half with. And those runs and going in 2s and 3s is easy to say. But when you're in Croke Park, the size of Phoenix Park, and now suddenly you're able to get to the ball and you're able to make tackles. Look at Ryan O'Donoghue, the way he was hounding James McCarthy, clatters him with a shoulder, goes after him again, tackles, dispossesses him, and he ends up in the move that kicks the point. That energy level wasn't there in the first half, and it's part of what Dara is talking about. Keegan moved out and he gave him a fulcrum. Paddy Durkin started driving on. Their backs were all exceptional. But they just found an energy that they didn't have in the first half. And you can be looking at all the tactical tweaks and how well they did in their own kickouts and different things. But sometimes it boils down to something as simple as that. And they showed it in abundance in the second half to be able to get around the pitch and really impose themselves on Dublin.
It was amazing, Mike. The quality improved as well. Some of their wides in the first half were dreadful. So their conversion rate in the first half was 40%, and then it shoots up for the remaining 55 minutes to 71% from 40. And you think of O'Shea's, 2 misses, and there was an O'Donoghue free as well. And you kind of felt, God, everything's going to have to go right for Mayo to win. And they were real momentum killers, I think, in that first half. And then, allied to that, you have Dublin free to have, 26 passes across 2 minutes 56 seconds. Christy O'Connor had it yesterday in the Sunday Times, and Kieran Kilkenny pops up over a point, and you're thinking, God, Mayo can't land a glove on them here. What happened to Dublin in the second half and beyond is maybe more of a mystery. I get Mayo upping it, I get that, and going in 2s and 3s, and I get that Mayo will force certain mistakes. But still, there was a decline here, or an implosion in Dublin here, that was hard to fathom as well, even taking into account what Mayo were doing.
Yeah, but I don't think the two of them are completely isolated. I think one obviously impacts on the other one. And when like you like Dublin were up 6 points at half time, and they started the second half with James McCarthy having a brilliant goal chance. So like you get to 62 minutes, 8 minutes left in regulation, and Dublin were still leading by 5 points. So it wasn't that Mayo came out like gangbusters at the start of the second half and took over the game, but they were far more competitive in that time. But I do think that the impact of the way Mayo were playing the game in the second half wore Dublin down. And we saw an awful lot of, people talking leading up to the game during the year about where Dublin going to get found out for the amount of quality and exceptional footballers that they've lost over the last number of years. Your Diarmuid Connolly's, your Bernard Brogans, your Jack McCaffrey's, your Paul Mannion's, your Cluxton's. Like it's an obscene list of quality that they have now lost in that period of time. And I think that what we saw in that last quarter and an extra time was that the guys that are there now, the guys that have replaced those stalwarts and superstars that have got Dublin out of so many holes over the past number of years, are not right now at the same level or not the same quality that Dublin's finishers were when Cormac Costello and Kevin McMillan were coming on eviscerating teams in the last 10 minutes. That same level of quality isn't there, and they didn't have that punch off the bench. Mayo outscored them from the bench. While it was only 2 points to 1, they were having the guys that were making the impact, and Dublin waned, and uncharacteristically their decision making, their kick passing, they were lumping ball from the sideline in top of a square that you've never seen Dublin do for 10 years. And it just like a little bit of panic seeped in when they knew maybe what was coming and just couldn't dig themselves out of the jam.
Yeah, Mike used the phrase there, Mayo wore them down physically as much as anything, Dara. I mean, that was the extraordinary thing. Like you figured Dublin wouldn't be worn down physically, however they might be beaten here along the way. Physically, they were always going to be, as good as any side, even Mayo, and that's what we've said about Dublin for years. That was kind of a staggering thing, that Dublin physically looked. I mean, you don't say their legs went, but people were saying that afterwards, and understandably so.
Yeah, I think at the end of every year is kind of brutal like that. It probably doesn't paint a proper picture of how good they were, as we all know. I mean, their record will stand the test of time better than any team in the history of the game, and probably in our own lifetime going forward. But when they do fall, they fall badly. All Ireland champions. We lost All Irelands to Kildare 98, to Meath famously in 2001, to Tyrone in 05 as defending champions in my time playing. And it gets ragged and it gets messy. You'd like that the discipline doesn't go, but it happens.
Yeah.
And I suppose James McCarthy was probably emblematic of that, one of the finest players ever to play the game. He visibly got old in front of you in that second half. When do you see him turning over? The mind is telling him to do stuff, the legs are telling him to do other stuff, and then he does stupid stuff at the end, which is so uncharacteristic of the man. An unbelievable footballer over the years, but he just looked that he ran out of juice. And I don't think you can, when you say that in the modern day, it tends to turn towards strength and conditioning and who's training them and what was the training regime like. But it happens. 20 years ago, we lost an All-Ireland semi-final to Meath. We were very well trained and everything. We just died to death on the pitch.
It's almost almost more of a spiritual crisis of sorts.
Yeah, and you can analyse it all you want, and you can parse it, and you can say, were we pulling together? Was it this in the camp? Was there that in the camp? But the reality is, when you hit the wall, as Dublin obviously did, they met a team that were just full of energy, and there's been enough talk about, I suppose, Diarmuid O'Connor's intervention to keep the ball in play. But that was just a sign of it on the other side, when you're absolutely ravenous. Had it been Mayo going for 6, 7 in a row, I'm sure that wouldn't have happened either. Dublin were doing that all over the years. We marvelled at how they were doing it over the years. And their time was up. It was as simple as that. We thought that day would never come. There was times, and the debate was plenty about, split Dublin up and they're over-financed, they're this and that. And there were voices within Dublin saying, look, this day will come. We don't have an awful lot of talent coming through like other counties, and this day will come. So when it comes, we shouldn't be shocked or surprised that it was so brutal, I suppose. And it was brutal to watch. It was shocking to watch brilliant players just not playing to their expected levels. And you know, they're still a great team. They will always be the 6-0 team. Nobody will ever take that away from them. But I think really last Saturday was all about Mayo and all about, you know, their refusal to buckle and, you know, just, you know, their willingness to chase down every single ball. And yes, Dublin were off colour.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take anything away from Mayo.
Because, Mike, they had such a veneer of assuredness, Dublin, that, as Dara says, it is shocking when they sense it's over and then the raggedness comes in. Like, you think of, remember Scully's kick pass back? He skies it in the air and it's like a 50-50 contestable. Not to mention the concession of the 45, you know, the passing along their own end line at the death when they're still a point up in normal time. Like, you know, they could have even got away with it. So the raggedness that crept in, it does speak of a certain panic.
Yeah, and it is fairly inevitable. Like, in those circumstances, when you've been as good and at the top of the tree for as long as they have, undeniably, you know, the best that we've seen do it for as long as they've done it, and now you can see that slipping away right in front of you. You know the guys that are there aren't getting the job done. You can just sense it. Like when you see Ryan O'Donoghue dispossessing James McCarthy in the middle of the field. Like a James McCarthy turnover in the middle of the field from contact in a tackle is something we haven't seen in Jesus, I don't know, since the guy's playing football. And all those moments were going to that ravenous Mayo side. The young guys that we hadn't seen a whole pile before of were the ones that were dictating the kind of terms of engagement, the physical stuff, the 50-50 balls. Young guys like Tommy Conroy saying, Jesus, I haven't done anything for 45 minutes, but I'm going to show you here in the last quarter and extra time that I can be a leader at 21, 22 years of age. And you had so many of those guys, young Hessian coming on and you know, Matthew Rowan, the job he did on Brian Fenton. And, you know, it was just, you know, it's all about Mayo right now, obviously. And that's not to say that we won't see Dublin again next year and the year after, because they still have the spine of an awful lot of quality. And those guys that we're talking about now who maybe didn't step up the last day, you know, who knows in the next 2 years what they can produce. Maybe Jack McCaffrey comes back into the mix, or maybe Paul Mannion comes back and suddenly they're right back where they were or close to it. But it was fascinating to watch. It was fascinating to see how captivating it was for everybody in the ground, for everybody watching on TV, because you were seeing something that we hadn't seen for so long. And they did it in a way, a typical Mayo way, game over at halftime, dead and buried. And no, I'm going to come on, I'm going to take off my captain, I'm going to show you guys that you maybe never seen before, and we're going to get one of the greatest results ever.
Yeah, there were several acts along the way in this production, and there was definitely, I don't know, somewhere around the third act, Dara, where Conor Lane had completely lost control of the game as well.
Yeah, it was an unbelievably challenging game for Conor. He's a referee. A year or two ago, I would have thought it was one of the best in the country. Players have bad games. Conor Lane had a really bad game the last day, and will know so fairly immediately. And the interesting thing is, I suppose, when you see referees and linesmen and umpires huddling between normal time and extra time and stuff like that, you know that's the conversation that's going on. You know that's what they've missed. And there's so much going on now. I was surprised to learn recently, you know, that, you know, the media, the TV have access to the wire-ups and to what the conversations that's going on. I remember watching a documentary on referees a number of years ago and being surprised to see the amount of communication that was going on. And that's probably increased even more now with the implementation of Hawkeye and all that. And Conor Lane will look back on that and just say, God, it was just one of those days. No more than 8, no shave for Mayo the last day. Did not perform. He did not perform. Borderline, I suppose, between black cards and yellow cards. The black card he did give, I thought, was a bit harsh. Should possibly, maybe to the letter of the law, might not have given ones, but probably in the spirit of the game, should have given a few more to Dublin. And the famous hit then, you know, the big sin from his point of view, everybody makes mistakes, was just probably should have stopped the game. Well, not probably, should have stopped the game, really. I think people knew it at the time. Looking at that incident even in real time, I actually thought it was a fair shoulder. And when I saw the replay, for a while I thought it was a fair shoulder. And then when you think around it and read around it, and I thought this line of, you know, duty to care was a load of nonsense, you know, but in the last 2 years it has come in a big way in tackling. And, you know, they're looking at different criteria. There are seminars given in Croke Park about how you lay a belt to a fella, you know, that the feet aren't off the ground, and that you might employ realistic alternatives. From John, if John Spall is playing the game when I played it, I would have thought, yeah, that's a perfect hit, and you took your opportunity and you hit the lad. But the facts are, there's a fellow with a broken jaw, and Owen McLaughlin was really unfortunate that he didn't have time to brace himself even. And there probably was a realistic alternative. Talking about the modern game, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have blinked an eye at that. But the way the game is being played now, and with the emphasis on head injuries, it was a severe tackle. And Conor Lane's sin in that regard was not so much the challenge, because I think we all thought, oh, what a hit. A lot of people did anyway, myself included. But you really should stop the game in that sense, and the way he fell to the ground. And I think that's what enraged James Hoard more than anything else, who was very placid on the sideline, and doesn't tend to go roaring and shouting around the place. And that was enough in itself to trigger, but the way he fell to the ground was enough to trigger a whistle and a stop.
Yeah.
And, it just wasn't a good day for the referee.
Yeah. I'm even surprised, Dara, you feel even like in your era that one would be okay, because my read on it would be that, like, we all get that shot. I mean, by the nature of Gaelic games, there's a lot of moments where you can line a fella up and he's blind, or he's waiting for a pass with no pace on it and he's going to turn, and the aggressor has the chance to really put momentum into the hit. But my read of it would be that if you're doing that and a fella's turning blind, even in your day, that fair enough, you hit him shoulder to shoulder and smack him down, it's beautiful, everyone loves it. But if you catch his head first, even in your day, head first would be, you'd be really dicing with a red.
Absolutely. What I was looking at in the one replay that I saw was the elbow up. The elbow certainly wasn't up.
No, the elbow wasn't.
It didn't catch him. It didn't catch him square shoulder to shoulder. That was the fault, I suppose. But I think the head was a secondary impact, where he wasn't anticipating, he wasn't braced for. How could he be? It was a hospital pass to start off with, and he just turned right into it. And 20 years ago, people would have said, "Geez, John Small took his opportunity." We speak of Ryan O'Donoghue, for example, to put in a great hit. I don't know, was it Sean McMahon or James McCarthy put in one in Sean McMahon as well, and he slowed him up. And you just say, and McMahon went down on his hunkers. And you said, geez, that you got your pound of flesh there. But it was a fair one. Watching the under-20 game yesterday, Cormac Egan for Offaly in possession comes forward and blows a lad out of it and kicks a point. And that's how you do execute a proper shoulder. Small's one, I suppose nothing happens by accident, and you have to remove the personalities from it. John Small has attracted a lot of negative attention over the years. He's a fine defender. He's a defender that you'd want on your team any day of the week. But it's only in the last 2 or 3 years, I think, there's been an understanding in terms that players are responsible for the contact that they make as well. Wouldn't have been spoken about. I never heard the term duty of care in my time playing football. It was certainly never spoken about in our dressing room. And if somebody didn't take the opportunity to hit somebody fairly and squarely as you thought, regardless of intent, you would have been lauded for it, and you would have been criticised for not doing so.
Yeah.
So it's a different game, understandably so, because the facts of the matter are, there's a player in hospital today with a broken jaw, and that's serious. But I do think that the head injury was probably a secondary impact of a shoulder to the chest, and the head swung then. And I'm no doctor, and I'm not a medical practitioner, but it's very, very unfortunate. And but I wouldn't hang John Small out to dry in that one. I do think he, in awful terms, probably got away with that 20 years ago.
Mike, you're working obviously with an inter-county team this year. I was talking to a player at the moment who I won't name, and he was saying his sense is that those blind shots are going out of the game, that players are so wary of red cards now that he thinks they won't even be around very soon. And I'd say maybe it was such a high profile incident on Saturday that might hasten the demise. They definitely have gone out of the game a touch, I would think, even in comparison with 10 years ago, or certainly players are that bit more careful.
Yeah, I would have a slightly different take on it. Like I think John Small has to go for that hit all day long.
Yeah.
That's his role on the team. He is the physical enforcer. He is the aggressor. He's the guy that lays down these physical markers to try and intimidate the opposition. He obviously went with a genuine intent to make honest physical contact, which is still in the game and is still a part of the game. He caught him a little bit high, and it was a red card. There's no question about it. But John Small, for me, is doing what he's supposed to do with honest and genuine intent, and he got it a little bit wrong, and he should have been punished, and he should have got a red card. The big issue is, as Dara says, no, is Conor Lane had a howler in terms of, I thought it was a good hit as well when I saw it the first time. And then after you see the replay and you see his head and obviously the way he fell, should have been an immediate signal to a fourth official, a referee, a linesman, to stop the game immediately, because the result of the game wouldn't matter a heap, lads, if this fella was even more seriously injured. So that's where, for me, he gets a real black. Like all the other ones, I know he made mistakes with blacks and reds and different things. That's his primary duty, is to protect the players on the field. It's not John Small's duty. His game is to try and go and do what he's supposed to do. And he just got it a bit wrong, and obviously he should have been punished according to the law, but he wasn't, and that's on the referee. But I'm not so sure. Like, we didn't speak about duty of care, in terms of making tackles or in terms of defending when we're training the team, and maybe it was something that we missed. But it's probably something they'll have to look at, Joe, like they did in NFL and these blindside hits.
Yeah, I think it's a phrase maybe more of a rugby phrase at the moment. That's where I tend to hear it more. And obviously, look, I think it will go that way, whereby in rugby now, and sorry, actually, Dara, I think you have to go, do you?
We're okay for a while.
Okay, I won't keep you long. I think you watch a rugby match now, Mike, and every tackle, they have a look back at it on replay, and if it's even like hint of shoulder touching head, you're gone. It's a red card, they're stamping it out. I think that's where this could go in GAA very quickly, whereby, look, you're entitled to drive your shoulder into his shoulder in a moment like that, but like 100% responsibility is on you, and there's no room for error.
Yeah, and that's why then it should have been punished when you don't get it 100% spot on shoulder to shoulder. That's the repercussion. You get a red card. And obviously the rugby is slightly different in terms of they're trying to negate the amount of head contact or damage that's going on in terms of that stuff, and that's not as prevalent in the GAA. But I still think it's something they can look at, Joe, and look at those blindside hits in particular, whereby a guy is wide open and exposed and he's getting hit with real velocity from a guy coming the other side with a shoulder charge. It's something they can look at, but for now it's still a part of the game, and I would have no problem if John Small hit him the exact same way, but 3 inches lower and made it shoulder to shoulder, then that still has to be a part of the game. It's still a contact sport, but if you hit a guy in the head, you're gone. There's no excuses for it.
So we'll talk Mayo, I suspect, over the coming weeks a bit more, and it's James Horan's finest hour and everything else. Where does this leave Dessie Farrell, do you suspect, Dara? There's lots of talk of, have standards slipped a touch and things become a bit looser, and, suddenly after a defeat like this, the COVID thing, training breach re-emerges, and there's, grumblings that certain players actually weren't too happy about that, and that all resurfaces now. So what's your read, admittedly from the outside, on where you think Dessie and the Dubs are?
Yeah, from outside the bubble, there's part of me saying, look, Dessie Farrell has had 2 years with this Dublin team. Last year won an All-Ireland where nobody was watching, and it was very hard to I'm sure, for all teams to do that. And this year, something similar, restrictions and everything else. There was a period there during the game, the last day, where the Come On You Boys in Blue struck up for a small while when they were putting these necklaces of passes together, and it felt like old times, full house, Hill 16 and full song and all that. And Dessie has never had that as the manager of the team, where the Dublin Hill, the support get behind the team and stuff like that. So it's been an almost joyless 2 years, even though they won the All-Ireland last year. And, the indiscretion at the start of the year just set the tone for the year after that. We didn't think so at the time. I was one of those that thought they'd squeeze another All-Ireland out of it, like Kerry in 1986 at the end of their era. They didn't and won't. And there's a big job. But it's a 3-year contract that Dessie Farrell has. And in his third year, if there was some sense of normality, I think, Mike mentioned the likes of Jack McCaffrey, the likes of Paul Mannion and these lads. If they were to come back, you're thinking on Dublin transforms overnight. And there is a rebuilding job to be done. They have been winning, at minor level. They've been okay at 20s and stuff like that. But the conveyor belt seems to have dried up a bit, reflected obviously in the input from the bench. But at the same time, they still have 5 or 6 of the best players in the country. And when you stretch that out, maybe 9 or 10 players, of the best players in the country. So to be fair to all concerned, I think he should be given a bit of breathing room to do the job of, getting the act together, getting the show back on the road in 2022 in terms of what he needs to do. Yeah. He would have had a very strong relationship with a lot of those players. Had they won the All-Ireland this year, it would have strengthened even more. Coming up underage, he's achieved a lot, minor, under 21 and senior. But he's been no more than 32 other managers in football. They've been and Mike would know more about it than I would. Like, it's a different type of setup when you don't have that community around you, as Dublin would have had for 5 of their 6 All-Irelands. It's been challenging.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, Mike. Like, you could take a very uncharitable interpretation of last year, and it was just almost residual memory of the Gavin era, and Kerry bottled Munster and Donegal mess up in Ulster, and it was quote unquote as easy in All-Ireland as you're ever likely to win, which is maybe a bit fair on Dessie Farrell. But look, it's tough to follow Gavin, and this has been a messy year for him, and consistently messy performances. So I don't know how much trouble do you think Farrell is in here in terms of this rebuilding?
I don't think he's in any trouble. I mean, he obviously went into the gig with his eyes wide open. He understood the age profile of the best players on the team and the panel in general. He knew that there was going to be a certain amount of regeneration. I assume, that was one of the reasons that he was chosen for the job, with his history in terms of the underage structures within the county. So he knew the guys that were coming, and hopefully it would be a seamless transition. But again, I just think the key thing for Dessie Farrell, the Cluxton thing is still a mystery. That COVID issue was un-Dublin-like under Jim Gavin, certainly, and that brought negative, headlines to the county that they haven't seen in a long time. But I still think the biggest issue has been the turnover of players. Like, a manager is as good as the guys that he has in the dressing room, and Jim Gavin had a serious amount of weapons that Dessie Farrell hasn't available right now. So his job is to try and develop those guys and improve the Buglers and the Lehifs and the Cormac Costellos to see can they become as good as the guys that they're now trying to replace. But in terms of what kind of trouble he's in, I like, it was never gonna keep going, lads. It had to stop eventually, and somebody was going to do it, and it's probably just most fitting that it was a Mayo team that pushed them to the brink so many times that were the ones that were their eventual conquerors.
Yeah. Before a listener gets the wrong end of the stick, when I say trouble, I don't mean trouble for his job. I just mean the difficulty level in terms of getting Dublin back to winning in All-Ireland. Someone will think I'm calling for his head. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Listen, fellas, brilliant analysis. Really enjoyed that. Mike Quirke, Dara, Cinnéide, the Kerry Mafia owning the airwaves. Thanks so much.
No bother, Joe.
Show me the science.
Proudly sponsored by B. Braun.
With Professor Luke O'Neill.
A News Talk original podcast series focusing on different issues, from the serious to the silly. All explained through science. Catch up on the podcast series at newstalk.com or on the Newstalk app. Powered by Go Loud.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass